Welcome back to the Field Trip Podcast. My name is Brent Terhune. Joining me for just a general let's chit chat like old friends, old gals. Mr. Trae Crowder. Trae, you've been on the show a bunch, so welcome back, man.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I was about to say good to have me. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's good to be back. All that. How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right, man. We're just we're talking right now for the patrons, so this will
Mm-hmm.
be Patreon only anyway. So if you wanna say some shit that like fly off the handle,
Yeah,
this nobody will ever release this, just so you know.
yeah. Well, that is good
That's
to know. Let's see
yeah.
let the real Trey come out for once. How wild would it be for if any of your patrons that are familiar with me if I just started getting into like fucking
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson type shit or whatever?
Your
So,
English accent and
yeah, all that. Yeah. But no, pretty much what you see is what you get. Yeah,
yeah.
I knew you were a horror guy just from like your. I don't remember if we've ever talked about it, but I just know from
Mhm.
your social media and stuff, you're a big horror guy. But I like your collect horror and metal. You're a metal guy too.
Yeah, I like Metallica. That's like the I think most metal people would say it's almost entry level metal, but yeah.
For sure. Well, yeah.
Metallica's
Well,
my favorite
metalheads
band.
get real nerdy and gatekeepy with it, which I'm not at all a metalhead. But I with all music, I find that I like. I just in pretty much any genre you can name, I've got at least a couple or a handful of artists that I like in
Mhm.
in pretty much every genre there is. And metal is the same too. Like I've got a couple of metal bands that I fucking love,
Mhm.
and then I've got like a couple, and I know a handful of other metal songs that I'll listen to here and there. But like the shit that I like, I really like a lot.
Yeah.
But horror though, never could really get into it. My dad was a huge horror guy, but he was just a big
Really.
movie buff in general. Yeah, he owned a video store
I was
when I
gonna
was a
ask,
kid.
yeah, it was you
Yeah,
guys that own the video store, right?
yeah, yeah. So he was just a big movie dude in general, but he liked horror shit especially. We had all those old horror movies
Mhm.
in the store. We had a horror section and everything.
What was the store called?
Crowder's video.
Crowder's Video. And then what formats did you guys carry?
Uh, we at this time, it was most of my child. We had just started getting some DVDs and shit when
Mhm.
sort of. So for most of it, just VHSs. I think he
Yeah.
opened it in like the 80s and then had it through the 90s. And then in Salina, my hometown, everything for everybody sort of started to fall apart in the late
Mhm.
90s and early 2000s. So pretty much just VHSs for the run. But also we had video games too. We had Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo games and
Yeah.
stuff, which was fucking super rad for me. That was my favorite part. I mean, all
Yeah.
that part was pretty cool because I just, if I just wanted to watch or play something, I could just take it home with me and
Mhm.
do so and then bring it back later. It's pretty rad.
Did you guys have like your dad was like, "Oh, here's so and so's picks." You had the wall of staff picks?
Uh, no, I don't. He didn't have a special section for that, but he definitely like offered his picks to people.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like he would, like I said, he was a big movie buff, and like he would always like, he did that. He just didn't make a section of the store. It was like his nickname was Spook's Corner, or Spook's Picks or
Mhm.
something. He should have done that in retrospect, but yeah. And then there was a section in the back I wasn't allowed to go into. You
Was it
know,
the now
where
how was that divided?
the
Was that
boxes were
beads?
bigger.
Yeah.
No, it was a door. It was a
Okay.
door, and like the back, you go through the door, and it's more dimly lit, and then yeah, all the boxes are much bigger, and
Mhm.
you're not the way it worked in our store was like the box was on the shelf. You take the box up to the counter, right? And
Mhm.
you check it out. And then behind the shelf is the actual,
Yeah.
movie, right? In the inventory, we pull the movie out and give it to you. So now the box is off the shelf so people know it's rented out or whatever.
Yeah.
Put the movies that are rented up on a thing behind you up there that show so people can walk in and look, oh, is that in or out or whatever. But
Okay.
anyway, but the pornos, they, because the boxes were also sinful, right? The
Mhm.
boxes themselves are pretty rough. So the pornos had little like tags on the wall
Mhm.
underneath the box, and you pulled the tag and brought it to the front. And
Okay.
we used the tag to get the tape and give to you. But yeah, I wasn't allowed to go back there.
Did you guys have any kind of regular backroom visitors?
Oh yeah. I mean, dude, the back room was hugely popular, you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
But it's like, but you'd
pre-internet,
have to
like
come,
it's where else
yeah,
would you
right.
go? Yeah.
You'd have to come in there. I'd say the back room kept the lights on in that place probably, but like you'd have to like, but it's a small town, small southern town, so like, people come in hoping to hit the back room, but somebody else is in the store, so now they got to pretend they came to look for the new Stallone movie or something
Yeah.
instead. You know what I mean? Because they're not going to go back there when anybody else is in there or whatever, like that type of shit.
I remember when I was a kid, there were 3 different video stores we went to, and eventually just ended at Family Video. If you guys ever had one of those around
Not in
where
my
you were.
hometown, but
Yeah.
they had those in Cookeville, which is where I went to college later on. I always
Yeah.
liked Family Video.
Yeah, dude, it's something nostalgic about a video store. Even though, like, if they had like a pop-up one now, I'd walk around, but I'd be like, what am I supposed to do with all
Yeah.
this? Take it back
No,
and
I
actually
know.
watch it.
Well, it's like I said, so Salina, I've talked about it a bunch, but my hometown, like there was this factory that was the beating heart of the town's economy, and then the factory left in the 90s, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it just fucking killed everything, and so many businesses closed and everything fucked up and shut down. So like in a way that was almost like I don't know. I guess it sucks either way, but what I'm saying is our video store failed for that reason because
Mm-hmm.
the whole town fell apart before it had a chance to fail for just the general it's a video store
Yeah.
reason.
We
You
were
know what I
failing
mean?
because it was before it was cool.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Failed in a hipster way. But yeah, so like, but I'm saying if the town had like continued to thrive and
Mm-hmm.
then just the video store failed because everybody started being like fuck video stores,
Mm-hmm.
that I think would have been harder for everybody to handle than just selfishly, everybody in my family, it would have been harder for them to handle
Oh yeah.
than the sort of just like universal apocalyptic nature of what actually happens. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's like everything was falling apart for everybody everywhere in Clay County at the
Yeah.
same time. So like,
There's
there
something
was,
about that misery. It's that misery loves company, but it's like
yeah.
something bad happens and it's also happening somebody else. I'm like, well, at least I'm not the only one in this boat. I don't know what it is about
Well,
me where I'm like, at least I
yeah,
can relate.
yeah, people like to commiserate, but also I think a part of it is just like, well, it gives it a sort of like it is what it is feel to
Mm-hmm.
it. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to like, what have I done? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you're not thinking, what have I done? You're just like, well, shit,
Yeah.
thanks the world for this,
Yeah. Can't do
like,
much about it.
yeah, right.
We talked about fandom a minute ago. What you're a fan of, a lot of genres and all that stuff. What would you say you're the biggest fan of in general of all things, not just music or anything? Because I like to ask people's hobbies, I guess is another way to phrase it.
Ooh, oh man. I mean, I guess probably when I was a kid, I would have said, and then for a long time, it would have changed. And since my sons have gotten older and also gotten into them, I guess I can't believe I'm saying this kind of, but probably video games.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not, I'm a very casual gamer, like, dude, because
Mm-hmm.
gamers are also like metalheads, which I guess it's just like any like super fans of anything, they get a little fucking ridiculous, in my
Yeah.
opinion. You know what I mean?
There's
Like
nothing
they
like
get,
a fan of something to make you feel
yeah.
like, do you actually like the thing
Yeah,
that you're a fan of?
exactly, right. So, gamers are notorious for all kinds of problems, so I wouldn't self-identify as being a gamer, but, like, uh, I guess that just because like, I play video games with my sons and stuff like that, like, in my 20s and shit for a long time, I basically stopped playing video games,
Mm-hmm.
but as they actually when they were born, like, because when they were little, I took some time off from work for paternity leave, but something
Mm-hmm.
people don't tell you though, or at least I didn't realize, is like, in my opinion, of course, I'm the man, but like I was doing a lot of the same shit that Katie was doing when they were like newborns. Like
Mm-hmm.
that part is really not that hard.
Mm-hmm.
People act like it's super hard. I don't think it's that hard. That
Yeah.
part is like, it depends on the baby you have, but like They mostly just sleep or eat, and, you know, you eat
Mhm.
them, then set them back down, and they go back to sleep, or they poop, and you change them, set them back down. I mean, you know, they're tiny. Like, at that age, you can't they don't
Yeah.
do nothing. They just lay there. All you gotta do is keep them alive. It's not that
Mhm.
difficult.
Mhm.
So, I took all this leave from work thinking like, "Oh, shit, I'm about to have a baby. This is like, you know, whatever. It's what you're supposed to do." But then, like, the time comes and I've taken all this leave and I'm like, "I don't fucking this is easy." Like, I got
Yeah.
no so that's when I watched Breaking Bad for the first time, which wasn't,
Mhm.
finished yet. There was, like, 3 seasons out, so I watched the first 3 seasons of that. And also, Skyrim had just come out, right? It had just
Yeah.
come out. And I had an Xbox, but I hadn't been playing video games routinely for a long time. But I had all this extra time, and this big new game is out. So I was like, well, I guess I'll give that a shot. So I bought that and played the shit out of it.
Mhm.
Got, you know, deeply
100
back into
hours?
it. And I don't know. I mean, I'd say over the life of Skyrim total, you know, probably something like that, I
Yeah.
guess, you know, because it's been out forever now. I mean, my son's 11, so that's how long
Mhm.
ago this was. But and that was sort of the start of me getting back into video games. Then um, when they got to be like 4-ish, you know, 4 around there, started playing like Lego games with them and stuff like that. And then it just went on from there. And now, or even my wife plays video games now, which
Mhm.
is pretty wild because she never ever played video games her whole life and also hated them. But
Yeah.
now, dude, she'll play Fortnite for fucking hours sometimes or whatever. So
Do you think it's that weird, I don't know if it's a culture thing or an age thing, because like you said your dad owned a video store. My dad drove any kind of truck when I was a kid, but like back in the day, I think those hobbies would have been like drinking, chopping wood. That was like a guy's hobby, is or he'd fix a car. But now it's like we have adults that are playing games and stuff. And I
yeah.
do you what do you think that is? It's like we don't
Well,
need to chop the wood or whatever, what do
my
you
my dad's hobbies was was drinking, but drinking
Mhm.
with his buddies and like also cooking out. They got really into like grilling, you
Yeah.
know, grilling and smoking shit, which I feel
Mhm.
like is still a pretty common
Yeah.
man's hobby. So he was real into that. Uh but you know, and then he was a huge my dad was just a big like he loved movies and he also loved music. My dad was a huge music guy. He
Mhm.
couldn't play anything, but he listened to and knew like everybody. He had a massive record and CD collection. He'd seen everybody in concert. He knew everything about all of it. He was like read all the books and all that shit. And so those were his hobbies. But like he also I think part of it is like, you know, when my dad was a kid, video games didn't exist. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Video games, we were the first people because we're around the same age. Like, you know,
Mhm.
I mean, like I was a kid when regular Nintendo came out, right?
Mhm.
And Atari was just like right before my time. And that was the beginning. So,
Yeah.
like, they couldn't have really played video games. And my dad used to play video games with me, but I think because he didn't grow up playing them, they reached a certain point around like like PlayStation 1.
Mhm.
They reached a certain point around PlayStation 1 where my dad was like, he was like, "This is too much for me." Like, you know,
Yeah.
which is funny thinking about how like he'd play Mario, you know, and
Mhm.
shit like that. But and even Mortal Kombat or whatever, up through like Super Nintendo and stuff like that, he
Past
would
2
play.
buttons. If you
Yeah,
did 3
right. Pretty
buttons,
much.
no.
Yeah. Once it got to like regular PlayStation, he was like, I can't
Mhm.
handle all that shit, you
Yeah.
know. But I think it's just nerd culture's just gotten way bigger. Us
Mhm.
not needing to chop the wood, I guess, is part of it. Although it would be, I don't know how you feel about all that. I lament my lack of man skills
Mhm.
uh, all the time because,
Yeah.
like, my dad, to a lesser extent, my dad, but he could too. But especially his dad, my grandpa was like, he could do all of that. He could
Mhm.
like he could build a house from the ground up. He could, you know, take apart an engine block, put it back together, knew everything there was to know about cars or whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn none of that shit from
Mhm.
him. Right. Which as an adult and as a kid, I was like, ugh, it's work. I don't want to do all that. You know, fuck that. It's
Yeah.
stupid. It's gross. But now that I'm an adult, I really regret all of that. But like also though, he had the mentality of like, the mentality toward me of like, no, you're going to go to college. You're not going to
Mhm.
have fucking grease on your hands and your clothes and stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to wear a suit and tie and work in an office and be a businessman or whatever. Like
Yeah,
that was
or white collar versus
white co-
work for a living,
yeah, he didn't want me to work for a living. He wanted me to go to
Mhm.
college, graduate, and be a white collar motherfucker. So like he purposefully didn't. But if I'd have asked him, he would have told me, I
Yeah.
never took an interest. He never volunteered it. He died when I was 18. My dad
Mhm.
died a few years later. So all that's just gone. And here I am,
With a leaky toilet having
with,
motherfucker,
well, but
like
except the thing is, and it's even funnier, my wife can do a lot of that stuff and I
Mhm.
can't. Like, so yeah, we've had an issue with this toilet in here in my guest house in the other room.
Mhm.
He fixed it like 2 days ago. She told me earlier, she was like, "Hey, I know that sinks out there is messing up, but I'm gonna get to it later." Like
You're like, "Thanks, babe."
Katie does all that, and I like bake cookies.
I made you the sweater, you fixed the toilet.
Yeah, like it really do be like that.
Mhm.
So what are you gonna do?
Besides video games, what else? Because I know you're a dad and you're a touring comedian, so I assume you don't have a lot of extra time besides that.
No, I mean, I don't really. That's what I was thinking in terms of hobbies. I learned to very poorly and at a very novice level play the ukulele like during
Okay.
during the pandemic. But I picked it up again a couple nights ago because like I hadn't played it in a while. But I'll go through spells with that. I go through spells where I play it pretty much every day and then I'll
Mhm.
put it down for a while or whatever, but I'm not good at it. Yeah, other than that, I mean,
Mm.
oh, well, I'm a big like I love, in keeping with what I was just saying, like I love the kitchen a
Yeah.
lot. I'm a big I love I'm big into cooking and food and I was really into baking, but my wife kind of rightfully so made me pump the brakes on that cuz I was fattening everybody up in the house.
Okay.
Her, and you can't just be feeding your kids sugar all the goddamn time. But it's like
Yeah.
it was getting out of hand. Like that was the thing I really got into, and during the pandemic was baking. I'd always
Mhm.
liked to cook, but I'd never baked anything, and I got really into baking. That goddamn British baking show is what did it to me. That thing
Oh,
is like
yeah, my wife likes that
heroin.
show. I've
I
been in and out of the
love it.
room. Yeah.
I love it so much. I've watched every episode of that show 3 times, all right, which is
Mhm.
the only TV show I've ever done that with. And I love it. And it got me into baking myself. And I got really into it for a while, ballooned in size. Katie and the boys start gaining weight too. And she tells me, she's like, you have to stop doing this so much. So
That was also during the pandemic, right?
yeah, it
So that I
was.
mean, we all were ballooning anyway,
Yeah.
in our own
And
way.
I'm also like, I wouldn't classify this as a hobby. It's more of like I don't know how to put it. It's like it's like a box I have to check, but I don't consider it like a hobby. But I mean, unless I'm traveling that day, like I work out in some capacity every day,
Mhm.
like 7 days a week, and I pretty much I've been that way for a very, very long time. Like I was on the bike, the Peloton for 45 minutes before I got on here with you.
Mhm.
Or I'll lift weights or sometimes fucking yoga or whatever, but I do
Yeah.
some kind of, I basically alternate between strength training and cardio, but I'm pretty I'm serious about just like making sure I do that. But I still
Mhm.
wouldn't call it a hobby because like it's not like a passion that I have for it or anything. It's just like
The thing you do.
a thing I do because I have to. And I do
Yeah.
feel like I have to. Like if I don't do it, my God, I feel like such a fat, worthless sack of shit at this
Mhm.
point. Like
Now
it
you
that's the thing.
welcome to my world, man. Welcome
Right.
to my
Well,
world.
it's like I don't it doesn't even make it's not that it does make me feel good, but it's like fleeting, it's brief.
Mhm.
The good feeling when you do it. It's but like it staves off the worst of the bad feelings.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. Like if I've ever gone through stretches like towards the beginning of if I ever fall off from working out, which I mean I haven't probably in 3 years. I
Mhm.
haven't fallen off, but like it's happened before. And if I ever fall off from working out after a couple, 3 weeks, like my depression just blooms.
Mm-hmm.
It gets so much worse. I just feel so much shittier about everything. And so I just, I have to do it. I neither love it nor hate it. It's just a thing that I do, like you
It's a
said.
utility at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
We had, I think for a while, I don't know if you still do, or, the same acting teacher or taking the same kinds of acting classes. And I think you were going in person. I was doing on Zoom during all the pandemic stuff, but are you still doing acting classes?
No, I loved that acting teacher. I loved those classes. I thought
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was awesome. She was this, she's a working actor who also did classes, and she's like a West Coast, or I guess she was originally from the East Coast, but either way, she's like a coastal Meemaw, meaning like the thing I liked about was like she's an old lady, and she's
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of old lady tendencies, but she's also like a progressive artist or whatever. So
Yeah.
she's all artistic in how she talks about stuff, but then she also has got like a mouth on her and will just say
Mm-hmm.
shit you wouldn't expect a person to say in 2023 or whatever. Cause you're like, oh,
Yeah.
right. She's still a fucking mamaw. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day. And it's like, it's just a combination that I just really appreciated. So, I mean, I loved her. I hope she's doing well, but she at least had retired from teaching.
Mm-hmm.
She stopped teaching. So I stopped taking the classes when she stopped. I haven't found like replacement classes, and
Yeah.
I haven't been back.
I
So
went with the other guy for a while, but it was more of a scheduling type deal.
that's what happened to me. It wasn't just because of that, but she like endorsed a replacement coach. So she's like,
Mm-hmm.
please take this guy's classes instead. But I'm like you said, the scheduling of all the classes he offered every time I was like,
It was a
dude,
travel day
I
or a
just
show
can't do
day.
that. Yeah. It's like on Thursdays or whatever. And I'm like, I can't do Thursdays, man,
Yeah.
or like, and then there was another one, I think on Tuesday evenings. I was like, I have my own live stream every
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday evening during that time that I do. It's like, and every time something like that happens, I'm always like, I know you think that like I'm just begging off of this or making excuses or
I have
whatever. I
real
always think
things
that.
going.
I
Yeah.
always think that in my head. It's like, I'm sure you think I'm just making excuses and not wanting to do this, but like I just genuinely can't do this again,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like always happens in those scenarios, I feel like, he stopped asking me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you say no to people enough times and they'll stop asking. It doesn't matter how legitimate your rationale is
Mm-hmm.
what I find, which annoys me. But yeah, so I haven't taken one in a long time.
Did you feel that those acting classes made you a better stand-up performer?
Oh, I thought you were going to say actor. Stand-up performer, I don't know. Did you think they did?
Yeah. I thought it made you a better stand-up performer. No,
Yeah.
I felt it when in my performance, at least. I'm always willing to look silly. That's part of stand-up, is let's have fun. And if I'm the silly one and I'm the punchline, by all means. But it was my act outs were better, I think. And I don't know if it's a combination of a lot of things, of deciding to be more physical on stage or being more comfortable with my body or myself for acting. But it was
Mm.
I felt being after those acting classes, like maybe making decisions of how to act out a joke or trying it differently, because that was also an exercise, is let's do the scene, but let's do it differently type stuff. Maybe just being more willing to take a risk probably helped me.
I totally appreciate all of that, but I
Mm-hmm.
never thought about it that way, which is funny because I did think, I thought those, I've been on many auditions lately. I don't know if I pissed my agent off or what. I need to figure out what's going on with
Mm-hmm.
that. But for a while I was auditioning pretty regularly. Could also just be that, like, they just saw enough of me. They're like, yeah, he ain't it, who knows?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like but either way, and I noticed, like, for sure, I know for sure that those acting classes made me way better at, acting and
Mm-hmm.
auditioning and stuff. Cause like I would start, like, by the auditions I was doing at the end, like towards the end or whatever, when I like of taking the acting classes and everything, I would look back on the first auditions I did before I ever took acting classes when I first came to
Mhm.
LA and stuff, and just want to strangle myself, my past self. You know what I mean? They were so,
Yeah.
and at the time I had no idea. I
Mhm.
remember like, because also like I had gone crazy viral and I had heat and all this stuff. And dude, I was
Mhm.
getting major auditions, and it kills me to think about that in retrospect because
How
like,
how yeah, for whatever role, and then you're like, "God, I did what? And I said it that way?"
exactly, exactly. And like, and at the time too, I was telling people were like, so how are those going? I'll be like, I mean, I haven't left any of them being like, what the fuck was that? Like I
Mhm.
feel like I'm doing all right. I feel like I'm doing like at the time I really felt that way.
Yeah.
Now I know enough to know that like I was not like, it was that some of them were so bad,
Mhm.
so like painfully bad.
Yeah.
And I didn't even recognize it at the time. And it's like, so when Corey went crazy viral, he started getting some auditions and stuff. And I told him, and he didn't listen, which is fine. It's his prerogative. But I told
Mhm.
him, I was like, the number one thing I would tell you right now, above everything else, is you need to take some acting classes immediately, because I
Mhm.
promise you, you're you're
It's not
worse
gonna
than you
hurt.
think
Yeah.
you are. Yeah, right. Like I promise you, you don't realize how bad you are at this, and you will
Mhm.
later if you listen to me and you do this. And because like all the other shit that happened during my whirlwind early career process was like, I wouldn't really change much of it. It just kind of went the way it went. A lot of it's
Mhm.
just like, you know what I mean? I don't have a lot of like regrets, but that is one thing that I do regret. I would have gotten into acting classes earlier, and like
Mhm.
that part of it, I absolutely mishandled.
Yeah.
So
But
I
how are you
definitely,
supposed to know unless you know?
yeah,
But
right.
now you know.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Right. Now I know,
Mm.
but so I would recommend to people, like I recommend acting classes. Like I
Mhm.
definitely think they help for sure.
And yeah, it's just I also felt like it was something I wasn't good at. I'm probably still not good at, but I could pull up all the other people in the classes IMDb, which is says something in general when I'm a guy that doesn't have anything like that. And I could be
Uh-huh.
like, oh, they were on this and this. So in my head, I'm like, why are they even here? But it's to be better. But I'm also in my mind, I'm like, you're already doing things. But it's
Yeah,
to
but no,
share the same class with people that have done legitimate things, you know.
yeah, it was a very legit, and also like the way I even got into that class was like her daughter, the coach's daughter, is a casting director,
Mm-hmm.
and I auditioned for that casting director, and she told me, she was like, "Hey, have you ever taken classes?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "No," and she was like, "Well, I know this is weird, and everything. But I think that." But my mom is an acting coach. She does classes. She actually specializes in stand-ups. I had mentioned I was a stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, I think that you could really do this. I think you have potential, if you want to look. And that's how I ended up with her in the first place. And she was legit. She had a lot of comedians, and she had a lot of people and had coached a lot of people that like worked and
They're
did shit.
in
I mean,
Marvel
like,
movies right
well,
now.
I was about to
Like,
say, yeah, some of her old students or whatever are like fucking massive stars
yeah.
now, and like, yeah, there were a bunch of head to toe legit people that took these same classes. So, yeah, I mean, I loved them.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned going viral, and you've had your different viral moments. So is Corey, and I have to my own extent. But do you feel like now you've blown up, and now do you get people asking what's next, or you ask yourself what's next? Are you constantly trying to get the next plateau?
Yeah.
Do you worry about that like I do?
Yeah. Hell yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's why I don't even know if you ever were a weed person, but I pretty much stopped smoking weed
Mm-hmm.
completely or having any kind of THC at all, because
Mm-hmm.
that's exclusively the experience now. The only way it affects me is I start getting paranoid and worrying about like the
Mm-hmm.
future and where I'm going to go from here and how I'm going to navigate all this and what I'm going to do and
Yeah.
whatever else. So like, yeah, I think about it all the time, but in terms of on the internet, I've only ever like across all the platforms, right? And me and you were talking a little bit before we started, and I hate that I resent so much that we have to care about all these different fucking social media platforms and all
Mm-hmm.
this shit or whatever. But like all of them. So
Those
like
are the
fucking,
tools now, you know?
yeah, right. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, right? Across
Mhm.
all five of those. Like my followers have only ever gone up gradually, like even with all the shit show at Twitter and everything in the past, like calendar year, I've probably gained 120,000 followers on Twitter or something like that. So like, I still like bring new people on, and the pages continue to grow and all that stuff. So as far as like the internet, I kind of just feel like my general sense is sort of just like, just keep doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like just sort of keep it up and just stick around. But in everything else, and as far, because I think that getting to the next level, I mean, I guess I could go crazy viral again with something, but like that's not the type of thing you can ever plan for, obviously.
It just kind of happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lightning in a bottle type situation. So like, sure, that could happen and that could catapult me up further. But like outside of that, what it's going to take for me is I'm going to have to do something else, which I'm constantly trying to do. Like I'm pitching a like a late night show. We're not calling it a late night show. It's sort of like John Oliver, but also with sketches or whatever type show. I'm pitching a show like that right now. That probably will ultimately go nowhere. I'm also trying to get a new sitcom in development right now.
Yeah.
And I'm always doing shit like that. And I've always been doing shit like that since it started 7 fucking years ago. It's been 7 years now, which is crazy to me. And I've had a bunch of, I've sold a bunch of shows, had a bunch of like opportunities, but people don't realize like those things, they fall apart. But like 90+% of them fall apart and don't ultimately amount to anything. It's like
probably a lot of that was not even you. It was you.
No.
It was out of your hands, and somebody was like, "Yeah, we're not doing that. We're doing the thing that I want to do."
It's completely out of your hands. I'm pretty certain that I've had 2 pilots with ABC, and I'm pretty certain that one of those pilots, I think they were maybe gonna make it. And then that was the year that Roseanne decided to come back, and they were getting Roseanne back or whatever.
So it's her fault. Yeah.
And they were like, and they just weren't going to make 2 shows like that with like 2 working class white family shows or whatever. And Roseanne's it's the return of one of the most legendary sitcoms of all time. They couldn't have known what would happen with that, but but she left and it became the Connors or whatever. And it still is a thing. You know what I mean? So like, I'm saying, there's a million fucking things that work against you at any given point in time. And it's also just a numbers game, and people just don't realize a lot of that. But also like, and then with stand up, we're talking about like, I want to get this special that I have in front of as many people as possible. And I'm working on a new hour right now that I'm like, if somebody comes along and they want to buy it in the interim and, film my new hour and put it on like one of the big platforms, that's fine with me, but I don't even care. I'm not even worrying about it like that. Like, I'm just trying to make it as good as it can be and then put it on YouTube. Cause that's like a thing.
And then it'll be yours still,
now. Yeah, right. That's a thing. People like respected comics do that now. And I think more people probably see, I think that other than maybe Netflix, YouTube is like the best place in terms of eyeballs on a special. I think more people probably see a special on YouTube than they do on HBO Max nowadays.
You don't need
on Amazon Prime or any of that. Yeah, right.
My grandma can watch it, and so you can find it. Yeah.
So that in terms of stand up, and then in the TV development world, keeping all that going and just trying to continue on until something sticks, but also just keep trying to build, gradually. Like I said, I do think that what we do, it's kind of a little bit of a war of attrition or whatever, where it's like, you just kind of stick around, you know what I mean? Like you just like make it work and stick around for long enough. And eventually,
other people go home. And right. There's tons of 10 out of 10 talent. It's just being the one at the right time, in the right place.
That's the thing too. Like you were talking about those acting classes with our old coach, and she did have some super legit people in there as far as comics who became actors, but she also had some like great comics in these classes that hadn't done a lot as actors, right? But they're good comics who by name and everything. And so you might think like, oh, a great comic, not a great actor or whatever, right? But like in my experience, man, I get into the classes with these people, start working with them, and I'm like, this guy's fucking great. You know what I mean? Like that's another thing people may not realize. It's like everybody is so great. like everybody, dude.
Yeah.
Like people that you've, barely heard of or maybe not even heard of in the comedy world or whatever, in terms of like actors that might pop up and be like, I feel like I've seen them before or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like the level of talent that those people have.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't believe it. Like everybody's so fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, there's a lot more to it than that. You know?
Then it's kind of in your hands, but not. We're all at a 10.
Right.
But what's going to set us apart?
Exactly.
Last question before I jump over onto your Patreon. So if you're watching this, to your listener, go check out Trae's Patreon as well. But are you tired of staying informed with
yes,
you do your weekly stream with Smart Mark, and was that twice a week?
Once a week, weekly skews, yeah, on Tuesdays.
And you make videos, and so you gotta stay up on what's going on. And so the answer is yes, but I feel the same way where I'm like, somebody will be like, did you see that happen? I'm like, it doesn't surprise me. I don't know what you people want from me. Like, and I do mean
no,
you people,
man,
but that kind of shit.
Like, so the truth is, before the pandemic happened, like for a while before the pandemic happened, I had gotten so sick of being like that guy, just being like in the politics world, being like a comedic political commentator or whatever you want to call it, making fun of like politics. Like I was just like, I just want to fucking talk about farts or not worry about shit or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Like I was really getting over it, but then getting to be over it. But then like the pandemic happened, that reframed how I felt about a lot of shit. Like during the pandemic, I was like, bro, this is your thing. Like this is why people like you. This is the reason you're here. Like you need to be more grateful for this shit. Cause like the pandemic just showed that like everything can end in an instant basically, or like change overnight. And so like, I don't feel that way anymore. I'm happy to keep doing it now. Do I get worn out on politics and stuff? Yeah, of course I do. Part of the reason that live stream exists is because I decided I needed to force myself to stay informed, actually, because I knew if I didn't, I otherwise wouldn't. Yeah. So I was like, well, if I do a weekly podcast that's about it, I'll have to somewhat keep up with it, because it was becoming a challenge for me to do so because I was getting so like burnt out on it or whatever. So yeah.
And that the beauty of technology, you can release your own special to people on YouTube, but now essentially you do your own weekly TV show. It's not on TV, but a lot of stuff is not on TV. But like the beauty of to be able to like, and then interact in the moment with your viewers. What a weird thing we've become with technology,
Yeah, well, that's like in one way we're really lucky as comics right now because of all that, because like it's possible to be like independent. Like, I mean, I've been trying to sell all these shows and do all this shit, but I haven't gotten anything off the ground. So like, I've essentially been like fully independent for my whole career, pretty much. Do you know what I mean? For like 7 years, I've been like an independent comic. I'm not getting permission for the gatekeepers or whatever to do the stuff that I do. And that's all relatively new. Like that it didn't used to be like that at all. Like even in the comedy world, you had to have the right person had to book you on the right late night show or the right young comic special or the right festival or whatever. Yeah. Right. Or, or give you a TV show or something, or like, what the fuck are you going to do? But it's not like that for us. Like we can do our own thing and carve out our own space and all that. And it's, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. It's been pretty sweet. Trae, thanks for being on, man. Anything you want to plug? You have a special right now on Amazon Prime. Anything else? Weekly Skews, the Well Read podcast.
All that. You can go to TraeCrowder.com and see the tour, link to the special. I got 3 goddamn podcasts. They're all fun, but it's like, do I really need 3? I don't know. But there's the Well Read podcast, Weekly Skews, then also Putting on Airs. Putting on Airs, we talk about fancy shit. Weekly Skews is political. Well Read, we just sort of bullshit around. So check them out. Patreon.com/Trae Crowder, where you can see what me and him are about to do, which you won't otherwise see if you don't sign up on there. As soon as I get off of here. So all right, that's it.
Cool,
Thanks,
man.
Brent. Appreciate it.
Thank you.